Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, as I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. There is so much news that we have to try to touch on just the highlights. The first, of course, is that Donald Trump has established a new trade arrangement with the European Union, 15% tariffs. And the question is, will all of these tariffs moves work? Well, I have to tell you bluntly, although I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump, I hope everything he is doing works in terms of relations with the world. But I can't tell you whether or not tariffs will work because we don't really know what the final agreements will be. And more than that, there is a constitutional question that needs to be raised. And that question is, does the President of the United States have the right to simply make tariff deals? I would suggest to you that ultimately those tariff deals belong in the province of Congress. Smoot-Hawley, back in 1930, proved that Congress is the one that sets tariffs and repeals tariffs. But what has happened is that Congress has ceded power to the executive, and that is the power to negotiate these deals without any supervision or any discussion. It concerns me, and I think it will concern us all in the days ahead. Today, the president announced that rather than a 50-day deadline for Vladimir Putin and Russia on Ukraine, he's now willing to extend the deadline by maybe 10, 12 days. He was not clear about that, but the one thing that is clear is that Vladimir Putin, at least up to now, has not given a tinker's toot about whether or not we impose a time limit. Putin is determined to establish what he wants in Ukraine, and so far, nothing the United States has done has changed that equation. And let's be clear about something else. Every time Russia rattles the nuclear threat, the world shudders slightly. At what point, as the killing continues, the drones continue to fly, both by Russia into Ukraine and by Ukraine into Russia, will something happen that sets off something larger? I cannot help but reflect, as we go into the month of August in just a few days, that World War I began, as Barbara Tuchman writes in her book, The Days of August, that it can happen by accident, a major confrontation. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the title wrong. It's The Guns of August, not The Days of August, but I'm counting down the days now. So when you read Barbara Tuchman's book, The Guns of August, what you read about are errors that take place, which resulted in the cataclysmic and catastrophic First World War. So we have to now watch carefully how this evolves, not just in terms of Russia and the United States and Ukraine, but we'd better take a hard look at Europe, Western Europe and Eastern Europe, how nations that are directly affected, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, how they react. Now, I want to talk for a few minutes about another issue. It is an issue which I think is the overwhelming issue here in the United States, and that has to do with freedom of the press. Donald Trump has already gone to war against CBS, and as you know, a deal has just been cut that resulted in Colbert being canceled, they say for financial reasons, but most people think it's political reasons, and Trump's demand that CBS, including 60 Minutes, be reined in. And as you know, just yesterday, Donald Trump asserted something else, that the licenses of NBC and ABC, two massive networks, should be revoked. There is a war going on by the Trump administration against the American media. I believe strongly in freedom of the press. I have already seen the contraction of our media opportunities. The fact that there is no talk radio, for instance, in Northern California. The fact that now there is an effort to destroy NPR, the National Public Radio, and yes, public television. The fact that huge budget cuts are necessitating major cuts in public broadcasting. Do you understand, as I do, that freedom of the press and freedom of expression are critical to the survival of our democracy? And what you are seeing now, I beg your pardon, what we are seeing now is a war being waged by the Trump administration against the media. But this is not a normal war. Donald Trump is determined to use the powers of the presidency, the power that he has, to limit, with the cooperation of like-minded members of Congress, what the media can and should report and do. This is in stark contrast to the days when the media in this country took strong stands, had many outlets, had the opportunity for back and forth. All of these things concern me greatly. There is no doubt that media coverage is critical. And so I wanted this morning to address with you Donald Trump's war against ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR. Well, it goes on and on. And once upon a time, there would have been no tolerance in this country, left or right, for attacks on the media that are ad hominem attacks. This is something that is going to grow and which concerns me greatly, and it should concern all of us. Many of you have asked me what my comments are about the Middle East. I want to tell you it is in flux. The tragedy in Gaza needs to be addressed. When one decides that all the fault lies with one party or the other, I think a mistake is made. But the simple truth is that once again, Donald Trump, who said he could solve the problem, has not been able to solve the problem. Because the problem, my friends, grows every single day. In fact, I would suggest that the question of terrorism, the question of cooperation in the Middle East, has metastasized. And like a cancer continuing to grow, it becomes harder and harder to contain. This is John Rothman. You are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I want to remind you, thanks for tuning into another episode. And you must know I'll be back here tomorrow with more. Make sure to follow along and to let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and, of course, you can always email me directly. I just want to say a special word of thanks to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this program. Gogo, thank you so much. And to all of you, we'll watch what happens today, whether it has to do with the EU deal, whether it has to do with the Middle East, whether it has to do with Russia, and think of all the things we didn't talk about, including the weather. So much to do and so little time. Make sure to follow along. Make sure you contact me, and I'll be back tomorrow with another episode in the ever-evolving moment on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.